Hello, everybody. It's me, Sarah, again, your Christian forgiveness coach, and you are watching Forgive Everyone for Everything Every Day Right Away. And this episode is about hypocrisy. So, I had such an interesting experience with my family. I've got two teens, um, and things are changing around here. And I'll tell you this story. It's the reason I got to thinking about hypocrisy. So, I got upset with one of my kids for their behavior. Um, and then it was so fascinating because then I realized I was doing the exact same thing that I was upset at them for. So I'll explain. So I said something that upset my daughter, and she totally shut down, wouldn't talk to me. And being on like the receiving end of that disconnection was really uncomfortable. And I wanted to, I wanted it to end, and I wanted them to like take responsibility for it, stop acting that way. But then I realized, wait a minute, I sometimes do the exact same thing, especially, I thought back to, my former partner. I would do, would say something, and I would take it a certain way and just completely shut down. So I got to thinking, okay, how could I want to tell my daughter not to act that way when I act that way? And doesn't that make me a hypocrite? So if you Google Bible and hypocrite, you will get a lot of verses. Scripture has a whole lot to say about hypocrisy. But one that hit me the most was in John in chapter 2 and 4. John says, however, if anyone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen. And then in 4, he says, quote, whoever says he is in the light and hates his brother is still in the darkness. So I was like, okay. I really started to examine what causes us to do this, what causes us to become hypocrites. And first I found there's like judgment, right? The other person's doing it wrong. And they like said something wrong or they acted wrong. But underneath that initial thought, I feel like it comes back to us. And what I found was shame. What I found was that the thought I'm doing it wrong, or maybe I am wrong, and that caused the feeling of shame. So they're a little bit different. So I want to talk about both of them. The first thought, I am wrong. This one is a little different than I'm doing it wrong, I think, because if we believe the thought, I I am wrong, like as a human, we don't believe we can be good or worthy or lovable. And this is 100% a thought that the enemy wants us to believe. And this thought is actually never true, ever, ever, never in your life, no matter what you've done or not done, no matter how many mistakes you've made or opportunities you've passed by, nothing, and I mean nothing, makes you like wrong as a human being. Your existence, right? If you're a human, you were created by God, and God does not make mistakes. He doesn't do anything wrong, period. But that brings us to the other thought, because while God doesn't make mistakes, humans do. But making a mistake isn't the same as being a mistake. So I think we've got to make that important distinction. We are not mistakes, but we are humans that make choices that we might categorize as a mistake. So that thought, I'm doing it wrong, then comes in, right? Now, this is common, normal human thought, but there's some opportunity here to examine this because it's not always true. In fact, you are the one who gets to decide if it's true or not. But when we take this thought and believe it without even questioning it at all, that's when we can kind of get ourselves into trouble. Believing it without questioning it leads us to shame. And shame leads us to things like hiding, disconnecting from others, and sometimes even defending ourselves or justifying our behavior. So, my partner at the time had said something to me that I then had that thought, I'm doing it wrong. Um, I said something to my daughter that caused her to have that thought, I'm doing it wrong. And I remember even like later saying something to my son, and then he had that thought, I'm doing it wrong. And then we're all feeling shame and we're all disconnected from one another. And that is painful stuff. So, what's the lesson here? Is it that we're doing it wrong and we need to change the way we're doing it? Does doing it wrong mean we are wrong? Like, do we believe that lie? Are we believing that lie? So for me, I don't believe that lie, but my kids might be. So there was an opportunity for me as a parent to have that conversation, just like I'm having it with you right now. And I also see the lesson for me in this being on the receiving end of that disconnect with the one, who said the thing that caused my kids to think or feel what they were feeling. Ooh, I didn't like being on that side. Right. And so I noticed the same thought come in from that side too. I'm doing it wrong. As well as like, I should not have said that to her. I need to fix this. It was so interesting. But before I decide what I want to do, I have to clean up my own mind first, my own thoughts and beliefs. I was blaming my words for my kids feeling shame. And what I need to understand is they're human beings with their own brains, just like I have my own brain. And while I do want to be the kind of person who takes responsibility for my words and actions, I don't want to be the one who feels desperate, like to fix something that's not broken. My kids are not wrong for feeling the way they felt. They're not people who need to be fixed, and neither am I. So, do I want to do better? Yes, of course. I want to love more. I want to be more of a light. I want to trust God more. I want to be a safe place for my kids to come and be themselves. Where I get into trouble and I have to catch myself being kind of that hypocrite, right? Is when I think they're doing it wrong and shouldn't be doing that. But the reason I think that is because I think I'm doing it wrong and I shouldn't be like that. And then I feel shame. And then I come off as maybe kind of righteous, or I make excuses and I'm not loving or approachable. Okay. So the lesson here is where we are judging others for their actions, or where are we judging them for their actions when we are in fact doing the exact same thing? And then we end up judging ourselves. And I want to offer that we start right there with ourselves, not the other person. So if we started talking to ourselves like this, instead of telling ourselves we're doing it wrong, which rarely leads to anything productive, what if we asked ourselves instead, what would I like to do differently here? And then lovingly answer that question. So try that out for yourself and notice how differently you feel when you ask yourself, what would I do differently here? Versus, I did that wrong. So really sit with each of those and just notice how you feel. What other thoughts come into your head, and notice what you feel like doing or not doing when you focus on each one of those. So just that little shift in how we word things and how we talk to ourselves can make such a huge difference. All right. I hope that helped. Talk to you next time. Bye.